This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 269 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today's topic is working in tourism and travel. I've got three different and interesting angles, people who work in the tourism industry but from different approaches. I think that for lots of people, the idea of working in tourism and travel probably sounds like a bit of a dream job, and I think many people who work in it pandemic stress aside, let's say, would agree. There's lots of good to be had from working in such an industry where it's, generally about a happy, joyous occasion. But of course, no job is all good. And so I wanted to talk to a few people about the different kinds of work that they do in the tourism and travel space. I've been collecting these chats for a while and finally got to put them all together into this episode. So what I have today is three chats with three women who all do different jobs in the industry. So Bev is a travel writer, Shelley works in the publicity, the public relations side, and Lucky works in hospitality in hotels. So quite different, but all of their roles are very important in how we come to learn and experience travel. So I hope you find their stories interesting and, in Bev's case, possibly quite hilarious. I laugh a lot. I apologise in advance for all that laughter you'll hear. But Bev's stories at the end. I'm starting off with Lucky. Now, you may remember Lucky Legong from episode 254 about migrating to Australia. So she moved here to Australia from South Africa for work. And initially, she worked for 3.5 years, I think, on the pretty remote Kangaroo Island off South Australia. So we were chatting about what working in hospitality and tourism is like.
At the lodge, we had people from all over the world as well, which is, one of the best things about hospitality is meeting people from all over the world and all different walks of life and just, learning from them. And you'll always learn something from anyone. So it's just getting to know people and learning really interesting facts about them and their lives and things like that. So that was just really one of the highlights, really. Of being there. We had a very good, solid team there. So that was, really good highlight there.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think working in a job like that, it's a little bit like traveling while staying in one place, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
The people are coming to you instead.
Indeed. And the remote living offers the opportunity for people to, get to know each other when in, just in general living, they really wouldn't. So it kind of forces people to get to know each other because you live together, you work together. You just always in each other's space. Exactly. There's no one else for at least 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
so it
wonderful.
Forces people to actually get together and know each other. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I bet. What an interesting way to migrate.
Yep, and exactly. That's 3.5 years on Kangaroo Island, and then unfortunately in January, Kangaroo Island experienced those terrible bushfires, and unfortunately Southern Ocean Lodge was impacted, and that was a very scary thing to go through. Very, very scary thing to go through, and it obviously, it impacted Bailey Lodges. It impacted everyone who worked there. And it was just, one of those things that happen to you in life where there's really nothing you could do to stop it. No matter how prepared, we were. It was just one of those nature act of God that it's natural disaster that you can be as prepared as you want, but sometimes there's not really much that you can do.
No, and especially not in a remote location like that. There's really, it's just very, very unlucky, really, isn't it?
There's absolutely. A lot of that fire was very ferocious and it devastated 2/3 of the island. So unfortunately that happened, but on the positive side, I guess, for me, I was already heading up to Lord Howe Island anyways. And I was only supposed to be there for about a few months, 6 months. And I was just supposed to second there. And then, due to the fires, I just ended up staying on Lord Howe Island. And that's why I'm there. And it's then once again, another beautiful piece of paradise that I live at.
Describe for my listeners a little bit what Lord Howe Island is like.
Lord Howe Island is unlike anything you've seen before. Such a beautiful, beautiful place, special place. It's paradise. And a lot of people have described it as a paradise because it is. It's only 14.55 square kilometers.
Wow.
It's not a very big island.
Tiny.
Very tiny island. One of the biggest features of Lord Howe Island is Mount Gower. That's the 875 meter mountain that everybody wants to climb, except me. And
have you never climbed it?
No, and I really have no intention of doing that.
Is it hard work?
It is a very difficult climb. It's a challenging climb, but everyone who's done it says it's completely rewarding. And you know what, my fingers, thumbs up to them. You can just
look at their pictures, surely.
Absolutely. I am always very proud of them for doing it, but I just think that mountain is beautiful to look at. And
that's enough.
I actually have no intention at all and no desire whatsoever to climb it. But, Mount Gower and Mount Lichbird, just the mountains that are just right next to each other. And it's it's a prominent feature of Lord Howe Island. But along with that, it's amazing for its coral and diving, snorkeling, excellent marine life, just beautiful marine life. It's one of the most amazing places to go into the water because, they don't have an issue with stingers or anything like that. So there's no irukandji or box jellyfish in the water. And there's no snakes on the island or anything like that. And it's just really
perfect.
It's just really one of those places that you can just be completely free, when you're in the water or when you're out hiking. There's heaps to do. And it's just really beautiful. The very beautiful. The people there are great as well. So, yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
So I'm really enjoying Lord Howe Island. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, wow. And it's amazing that you've ended up here in Australia in two very special places.
That's
and you never really intended to come here at all. So
basically, a mate of mine, we worked together at Singida and we met James Bailey, both of us. She got offered a job here, and a year later I got offered a job here. And I just thought, why not? Why not? I mean, at that point, we'd been working in safari for quite some time, and I also felt like it was time for a change. Right. And I just thought, why not? There's an opportunity to travel, to go to a new country and see what's going on. I would definitely take it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts there. It was just a very good opportunity. And you know what? I've been here now for 5 years, and it's they can't get rid of me.
Well, after hearing some of that discussion from Lucky, you might want to do what I did, which is to plug Lord Howe Island into Google to just see the kind of beauty that Lucky is talking about. So imagine, that's her workplace. Wow. I think that there's definitely some big advantages to that kind of a job. So I'm sure there's some downsides, but it just does sound quite delightful. Now, my next guest today is Shelley Winkel. Shelley's worked in publicity for Tourism and Events Queensland for many years. In fact, I first came across her many years ago when the pro blogger blogging conferences used to be held in Queensland, and she was involved in the events connected to that. And we have crossed paths many times since. She's even run a media trip that I've been on to Fitzroy Island off Cairns a few years back. She is an absolute professional at what she does and a lovely person to boot. So I asked Shelley about, kind of the good and the bad of working in the tourism space.
I've been in tourism now for about 25 years. It's something that I always was passionate about, but I fought in the beginning. When I graduated, I wanted a serious job, and my perception of tourism was back then that it wasn't serious. So I worked I was working in the food industry, exporting, for goodness sake, stabilizers and emulsifiers into Asia, believe it or not.
Well, that does sound very serious.
And it was completely at odds. So a job came up to work for a company then called Australian Resorts, which owned Badara Island Resort, Lizard Island Resort, Dunk Island, and a couple of others. I ended up taking it, and the day I landed on that job, and I was based on Dunk Island, which at that stage was absolutely gorgeous, a tropical rainforest island off the coast of Queensland. And the day I landed, I just knew that I had found my vocation and career. Something happened and it all gelled, and you're constantly selling happiness and promoting happiness. And it's a nice place to be. I mean, who wants to work on the serious side of life when you can work for something that, is sunshine and happiness, basically. Holidays.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we all need more of that in our lives. It sounds way more fun than emulsifiers, I have to say.
So, I've done about 25 years working in tourism and always in publicity and PR and corp comms, the same kind of communications roles. I've also worked overseas for about 12 years and got to live in some phenomenal places, again, promoting tourism aspects or the hospitality industry. So, been very, very lucky with my role.
Whereabouts have you lived overseas, Shelley?
Oh, you ready for the list?
Go for it. You make me really jealous, but I'll listen.
So the first place was Japan. I lived there for 4.5 years. I started off as a high school exchange student, went back after university and worked. I worked in a hospital of all places. Ooh.
Oh, interesting.
And then I lived in the US in the lead up to the Sydney Olympics. I took a team across to promote the Sydney Olympics to the American market, then to Hong Kong for 2 years. I worked for Tourism Australia, then over to Malaysia. Then I swapped and I worked for a FTSE listed company. I worked for Hilton International at that stage, and I looked after a big area, Middle East, Asia Pacific. So I'd be anywhere from Egypt to New Zealand. Then I got transferred to Hilton in Europe and Africa, and I was based in Switzerland. And, I forgot Singapore in there as well. Yeah.
Oh, that does sound tough. There's some really horrible locations in that lot.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
No apologies.
No. And why not? Because you do a good job, so you deserve it. But there must be also some downsides. I mean, I guess it's not always, sunshine and beaches, is it?
No. The role I have now is quite sunshine and beaches, so to speak. But in previous roles, for example, with Hilton International, I did the full gamut of PR from corp comms to brand reputation, internal comms. So we did have some, I used to handle a lot of the crisis comms, and that actually was quite hairy, scary, particularly at the time. We did have one of our hotels in Egypt get bombed and quite a few deaths. So, for 6 weeks round the clock, handling a lot of media inquiries and setting up crisis hotlines. That was a particularly stressful time. Also having to, even in Queensland, so to speak, you do feel the impact of things like cyclones and fires where the operators, how much their livelihood depends on people visiting, and you can't help but, be working extra hours to help them and to try and promote when resilience and bounce back. And that's one of the things that Queensland is phenomenal. The Queensland tourism industry is just absolutely incredible. They get knocked down, but boy, do they get back up. At the end of the day, I talk glibly about this sunshine and happiness, but underlying all that, it is an absolute revenue driver and a great employer in Queensland. It's critically important to our state. And I get no bigger buzz than if I can put the spotlight on a small operation and the phone rings, somebody goes and visits as a result of a story that I've helped to create or a television show that's gone in there and filmed, and they get more bookings. I get a huge buzz out of that. So I love that there's all the awareness, but at the end of the day, if you can convert people to get in there and experience Queensland, then I've done my job and I'm super happy.
Well, I must confess now that Shelley and her influence over the years has definitely made me put Queensland higher and higher on many of my want to visit itineraries. So she's doing her job very well. Now, my final guest today is Bev Malzard. She's a very experienced travel writer and veteran of many media trips, and or we call them familiarisation trips or famils, and we got to talking about famils, and Bev had a particularly hilarious tale to tell of a famil in Spain.
When we're taken away, we are incredibly privileged. There's no such thing as a free lunch, though. We've got to come up with the goods. And we're fed. We're overfed. Mm-hmm. And I was in Spain on one of the most marvellous trips where I actually broke up with Italy and I took up with Spain. I fell in love. I fell hard for Spain. Mm-hmm. And we were tasting jamón, ibérica, every day. It was just exquisite. So in Spain, they don't have much of a breakfast, just a little, bit of toast and a coffee or something, but very late lunches. And so this day we had a lunch about 2:00, and it was a lunch that included steak and fish and soup and dessert,
Right.
a lot.
A full lunch.
A big lunch. So, And this lunch went on till about 4:00, and I could barely move. And we went for a little walk. We were in a medieval town, and we went for a little walk around, and I'd said to our host, I said, there was three of us actually, one other journalist and this wonderful PR lady, and I said, can we just have a little dinner tonight, because they'd organised for us to go to a very fancy restaurant. I said, just a little dinner, maybe one course or two courses max. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, so we rocked. We rocked up to this restaurant about 6:30, so there's about a 2.5 hour gap between lunch and this.
I was hoping you were going to have a 10 p.m. dinner or something, but no.
Well, they normally do, and because I once said, what do people do? They have lunch and they're just sitting around, and to this Frenchman, he says, we have a little talk and a little yoke. I said, oh, yoke. He said, oh, we like to tell little yokes. Oh. I said, oh, okay, so I should be doing that between meals. Anyway, I came for the meal, and the woman brought out little hors d'oeuvres to taste and kept on, pushing them on us. Then there was a prawn, some sort of appetizer. Then there was some pate. And at this stage, I just felt my eyes rolling back in my head, and I thought, I think I'm going to be sick. Then they brought out some jamón, because he was showing us how they put it on it's got its own implement for slicing. Uh-huh. And so we did that, and we had to taste his jamón. So we had all this. Then out came a shoulder of lamb each. Now, I'm the biggest sucker for lamb. I love lamb so much.
But?
And it was sitting there, and I thought, oh, what do I do? And I think I did put it on Instagram. I put the plate as it arrived and the plate when it left. I skinned it. I ate it right down. It was so good. And it was just, it was just being a guts. That thing where you can't swallow, you can just chew? Yes. I was like that. It was so perfect and cooked all day. And afterwards I said to them, we've got to go. I can't,
There's no space left.
I'm going to be sick. Something's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
But no, they brought out a little bowl of fruit, and I said, okay, had a little bit of fruit. And we're just about to get up and say, thank you. And they brought out a big bowl of this kind of chocolate mousse with cream on it. And I said to the girls, I can't cope. And I said, we have to eat this, because they're watching us.
Yes,
so
that's right.
To have us there.
Yep.
So when they turned around, I grabbed the linen serviette and I scooped the whole lot into the serviette, wrapped it neatly, and quickly pushed it into my handbag. And so I had an empty bowl, and I just ate it. Yes, grazie. And the other two are looking at me. They're eating a bit, and I said, shut up. So I waddled back to the room, and I had time, I just managed. I was delirious with fullness.
Yeah.
And I went back and I cleaned my teeth, and I just passed out on the bed in my clothes. I was so, food coma.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the next day, we had to get up early and go somewhere, had the shower, got ready, blah, blah, blah. And we got into a vehicle, and I was sitting there, and I put my hand in my handbag for something, and the serviette had opened up a little bit, and my hand went into the bowl, great mass of this mousse. And I'm standing there, and we've got the local dignitary in the car, and I go, oh, yes, it's so beautiful here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm trying to shake it clear of my hand, and I'm looking at, it was Marissa DeBicky, I think, from Melbourne. I said, anyone got a tissue? So quietly, I'm sitting there with my hand, looking at the window, turned around, licking my hand so I could appear normal. But, that's the trick. That's what you do when
Except you then have to remember to dispose of it before you next go out.
I know.
No.
There are a lot of mistakes being made with food, and it's it's so hard saying no when you're away. I'm sure there's people who can just, and I've been on a trip where someone just kept on saying no, 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 and they were fit and healthy and very thin. No one liked them. But
No, that's the problem. Exactly. I mean, I'm jealous of the fit, healthy and thin version, but also, I really think it can verge on being very impolite, especially if you're on a famil. I mean, they're looking after you, and I mean, yes, I wish their itineraries didn't include often 3 full meals a day, because at home I never do that. But, it's very hard to say no. So,
it was a wonderful trip, wonderful food, wonderful company.
I love this story from Bev, and I too have been on trips where I'm so well looked after that it does become kind of a problem. But like Bev said at the start, we're super privileged to be able to have those experiences, and I know I've been lucky to have some, really special trips through my work. So I have never... To this day, I have not had to hide my dessert in my handbag, and I hope I never do. But if I do, I'm sure I will remember Bev's story and not leave it in there the next day. So I pledge this now. So that's all I have for you in episode 269 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. I hope it's been an interesting insight into various parts of the tourism and travel space. A big shout out to my guests. First of all, I chatted with Lucky Legong, and she's from the Bailey Lodges group, baileylodges.com.au. I'll also leave a link in the show notes to her first appearance, which was interesting, at the episode about migrating to Australia, episode 254. So you can just find that by going to notaballerina.com/254. A big thanks also to Shelley Winkel from Tourism and Events Queensland, which is teq.queensland.com. And lastly, a very big thank you to Bev Malzard for her great story, her great honesty. You can find out more about Bev's travels at her blog travelgaltravels.com for Travel Gal on the Move. Don't forget, of course, to come across to our Facebook or LinkedIn groups. Just search for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook. For the LinkedIn group, just come to notaballerina.com/LinkedIn, and that will redirect you there. And all of these links and stuff will be in the show notes. For this episode, you can find them at notaballerina.com/269. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.